It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Cool.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Hope everybody's doing okay out there. Surviving the time change. I saw something on TV just a day or two ago. It's talking about the time change. Actually, there's actually physical harm for people. You know, it does damage. So then maybe there seems to be a growing sentiment of, hey, we need to abolish this. Just get rid of it and move on from there. So,
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm in the camp where I kind of understand why we do it. If we didn't have the time change, it would be dark at 6 o'clock. You know?
Well, you could set it at one time. It's either way, which I'm okay with, and we can go from there.
We've got this cool invention now. It's called electric light.
Yeah, but see, when this first came about, I could be wrong on this. I think it was to help the farmers, honestly. Because, you can only work during daylight. And if it's dark at 6 o'clock in the summer and 8 o'clock in the winter, there's a problem.
That's all well and good, but farmers tend to get up before the sun comes up anyway, so they're already taking advantage of all of the hours of sunlight. So
yeah,
you're really just jiggling it around a little bit, which doesn't really help anybody.
Right. But still, it would suck to be dark at 6 o'clock. I know as a kid, and the rule was come home when it's dark. 6 o'clock. We don't even eat till 7.
Well, and here's the other thing. So to help out the farmers, the rest of the entire planet the ones who actually abide by this thing have to suffer.
Well,
and like I said, there's
studies.
It's the studies that show that there's issues. Well, we already have sleeping problems, but it makes it worse, and all this. So well, and I understand it's not just the farmers. I mean, just within the last few years or so, they've moved back the fall because it used to be before Halloween. Now it's well after. It's usually the first week after Halloween, and supposedly
I think the sun determines it.
What?
On where the sun, the position of the sun and where it is from. I mean, because, right? I mean, dark at 6 o'clock and dark at 8 o'clock would have to be a difference in where the sun is hitting us at a certain time. Or
it's a seasonal issue, if that's what you're talking about. Well, but they have shortened the season. He's not wrong.
Yeah.
It usually runs from November to March now. It used to be like late September, early October till like mid-April or something.
Yeah.
They used to do it like 5-6 months, and now it's only like 3.5 or something.
Yeah.
So kind of my attitude is, what's the point? If we can shorten it, then we can just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that you have most of Arizona and a couple other states where there's towns that don't even use it. They don't abide by it. They go on their own. So I mean, it's like we're not even all on the same page. So it's like the whole thing's strange. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've got like 200 time zones. We'll never all be on the same page. And then, how is like Singapore like 16 and a half hours ahead of us? How do you get an extra half hour?
That's a weird international dateline thing. There's some weirdness there.
It's like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Right. I think the issue there is that there's an area that the people in it, they can't kind of decide which time zone they're supposed to be in, and so it just gets weird.
So, like, we'll meet you halfway.
What do you want to bet they don't change the clocks twice a year? Also, on top of that, I mean,
we're already screwed up enough as it is. Don't complicate it more.
The deal is, despite what the flat earthers believe, we live on a kind of a ball, and the ball spins, and keeping track of time is weird and relative anyway. So,
yeah,
you try to standardize what you can, and then there's always assholes who don't want to be standardized, and that starts a whole different conversation that we don't want to go into.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, I hope everybody out there is doing okay. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Damn, we ran early tonight. Shit.
Ranted before we had time to rant.
It's not even. We didn't even get to make it to the rant section of the show that we do every week. That's awesome.
I don't even have anything to say.
There you go. We're just covering for you a little bit. That's all.
I would stole my soapbox.
Yeah, right. You've always got a spare. What are you talking about?
Right. I could fill out the Big Bird. Oh, man.
Oh, no.
The only thing I will say on the whole Big Bird debacle, the day that blew up, the day that everybody was ready to cancel the Big Yellow Bird, on Sesame Street that day, which I watch religiously with my grandbaby, Big Bird was at the doctor's getting a shot and a checkup. So it's kind of like this is normal bird behavior. I mean, he's been doing this for years. When I was a kid, I remember him telling us to make sure we went and got vaccinated. It's public broadcasting TV, and that's what they want the public to do right now, So it's kind of like, wait till they find out there's mixed marriages on that show, too.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, there's a monster married to a fairy. What the hell?
I thought you were talking about the humans, but yeah, the monsters is, definitely.
Yeah, well, and there was the humans, too, Don't
even talk to them about Bert and Ernie.
Yeah, they've been a part of the public for so long. It's kind of like when you get your funding from a certain person, you have to kind of go with what that certain person's rules are at the time. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, wow. Can we find something else to outrage over than Big Bird,
That's not what the argument's about, but again...
Yeah.
It gets deep.
It does. But I thought it was crazy to drag Big Bird into the shit show, I think everyone knows I'm not on a side. I will not pick a side. And it's just silly. It's silly, Sit down and talk it out and don't use Seuss and Big Bird to make your points because you're losing. The only point you can make is Big Bird, then we've got a problem. So yeah, I said that's crazy. But like I said, I think Sesame Street has always been more of the current situation kind of thing, And if people are going to get outraged, it's not. Let's just forget what the whole message was, because, like I said, we won't even step there. But if you start getting people to cancel things like Sesame Street because you got your feelings hurt, you are going to hurt countless children everywhere, and that's not exaggeration. That's not, blowing things out of proportion. There's so many topics that Sesame Street also handles other than numbers and letters. Like I said, they have a single mom who married a single dad and blended their families together. There are thousands of families out there nowadays that are blended that way. It's nice for them to see this is normal. This is what happens. They had a puppet. She was a black puppet, and her hair's crazy. And they had, I think it was like Del Rue come on and sing a song about how that made her special. And she was beautiful just the way she was. And she didn't have to change for anyone. This is children's cartoons, getting that kind of message across today to children. So I think it's, they need to look at the broader picture of it. As much as it annoys you, there are so many other great things that Sesame Street does for children. Just making them feel like they belong, for one. They've got an autistic puppet now. I mean, they have been all inclusive. So it's kind of like, how can you make them pick a side when they've never picked a side? They're about everyone, and doesn't matter, black, blue, purple, green, donkey, elephant, we don't care. We all love each other, and this is what makes our community, our Sesame Street work, So, I don't know. Maybe we need to start watching more Sesame Street so that sinks in.
That's probably the problem right there, is that whoever's complaining about Sesame Street hasn't watched Sesame Street in 30 years.
Right.
I'm hearing all of this, and I'm thinking of a certain group that starts with the word comics, and I ain't going to finish the rest of that. It's the same damn thing. It's like they're complaining about stuff. It's like, you're not reading. You're not reading the books. The comics are too political. Hello, the politics have been in there since they were created back in the 30s, especially during World War II. So, whatever.
Yeah. And PBS, not just Sesame Street, PBS has been the type of programming that when there's some kind of pandemic, war, presidential assassination, they are not ones to shy away from it. Mr. Rogers immediately after JFK assassination jumped in and talked to the kids. You're hearing some scary things right now. You're seeing some scary things right now. Let's talk about that. And that was how long ago? That's just the way PBS has always been. And I think it's great that during times of pandemics or assassinations, when all of us are so lost in our head, we have somebody thinking of our kids. September 11th, I didn't know how to address that with my kids. I was so traumatized by what I was seeing on the TV. I didn't know what to tell them. Without falling apart, how do you tell your kids that people hate us that much? You want to tell them they're safe, but you can't, So I'm thankful that we had people like Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street, people who got in there and said, it's okay not to be okay, It's okay to be scared. And that's Sesame Street and, like I said, pretty much PBS, But speaking of PBS, totally lost my head and cried for a good 10 minutes. In Mr. Rogers' hometown, they unveiled his statue. They could not, I swear to God, they probably just bronzed the guy with children because that's how good it is, And it just, the way he is, it's kind of him setting with kids around him where he's kind of still on their level. And they just couldn't have captured Mr. Rogers any better.
Cool.
So if you haven't seen that, check that out. It was a pretty good homage to him. 'Cause he's another one. There would be no PBS without Mr. Rogers. There'd be no Sesame Street right now without Mr. Rogers. I think we've talked about that before, though, what he did before Congress and everything. So, but yeah, like I said, it amazes me. I guess it doesn't anymore. It shouldn't anymore, but it just amazes me to the lengths people will stretch to make it fit, you know? Leave Big Bird alone.
But no rant this week.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't have a rant.
Yeah. I kind of said Big Bird half jokingly, but that's been my trigger this week.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I first saw that kind of start up. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, today's the day to stay off Twitter.
Yeah, I should have.
So I saw where that was going to go.
It's just not Twitter anymore. It's like everywhere. People want to jump to blame somebody, a group or a person or a thing or a puppet to make themselves feel better. And it's like, I hate to be this pessimistic, but it's kind of like, wake up. We're living in shit right now. That's why everything is so bad, you know. But if you want to blame yourself. How about that?
That's never going to happen in our society.
No. Yeah.
It won't. But
not with the overall the mindset of I'm not okay. It's your fault. What are you going to do to change it? That's the mentality we have. And when I say we, I mean certainly this country.
Yeah. And I mean, I know when you throw a pandemic on top of things, it kind of freaked people out and made them crazy and lose their minds and stuff. But it's kind of like, come on, people.
It tapped into something that was already there, right? It was definitely more under the surface before, but yeah, it was always there. We've been building up to this for generations.
Yeah.
Not even just years, generations.
And when you have someone like me who, I love everybody, I will do anything in the world if I think it would help somebody or make them laugh. But I've gotten to the point where I'm tired of being responsible for your feelings. You know, I had to deal with this in my family. You are responsible for your feelings and they are responsible for theirs. You can't blame yourself for the way they feel. They need to ask why they feel that way, you know, not blame me because they feel that way. That's on you. You chose to, Phil told me this morning, I chose to react in anger. I chose to be angry. And it's like, you know, you're right. That's how I responded to that, is I chose anger, you know. Maybe we should choose love and peace for a while, you know. Because it's just getting old.
It's certainly draining.
Yeah.
Fucking hippie. What are you talking about?
I'm sorry. I will put a disclaimer. I'm not feeling well tonight, so this may come a little downer or upper or somewhere in between.
A little roller coastery.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'll
I like
just
roller
go back
coasters.
to say, leave Big Bird alone.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right.
All of that, Mike.
Right, hey, I am totally going to go in a totally opposite direction. I mean, you can't get much less Sesame Street than what I got right here. Because I actually managed to, I've finally, now that I'm not watching stuff all the time, I managed to watch a documentary. And this is an interesting documentary from 2008. And it is called Not Quite Hollywood, The Wild Untold Story of Ozploitation. Exclamation mark and all. This is, I will I will warn people right up front, if you're going to watch this, the documentary is rated R. All right. Because there are several different aspects of exploitation cinema. Um, Most of it involves sex and violence. Um, there was, and for some reason, the way this documentary chose to organize this was they did the sex stuff right up front. Um, you're not 3 minutes into this thing before there's full frontal nudity all over the place for like half an hour. It is unbelievable.
Well, you got Les's attention.
But it's all in the context. I mean, one of the filmmakers they're talking to in the documentary, when he's being interviewed in a strip club, I kid you not, there is a stripper behind him.
Bada bing.
Various states of undress. I wish you can't make this shit up. It's absolutely hilarious. And it's actually a really kind of interesting story. All of the stuff that they talk about takes place over like a 15-year span. Because Australia's exploitation industry just kind of blew up out of nowhere in like the early 70s and basically had burned itself out by the end of the 80s, by like the early 90s. And there's a lot of really interesting stories in there. There's a lot of really wild characters, and I'm talking about the filmmakers, not even the characters in the movies. Although there is actually a surprising list of guest bits in this documentary of American actors that we all know that went over there to make some of these movies. Jamie Lee Curtis is in this documentary. Dennis Hopper is in this documentary. Quentin Tarantino apparently played a big role in this documentary. He's in it all the time, and he's a hoot. Anyway, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. I would not watch it with your parents, Liz, or your children, right? But it is actually very informative once you kind of get past that first bit where it's just, man, I don't know why they felt the need to pull so many of those scenes from those movies. It was a lot, but it was once you kind of get a handle on it and you're listening to what they're saying rather than what's on the screen. I mean, you could mute the thing and do whatever you want to do, but then go back and listen to it too, because there's a lot of talking going on that's explaining stuff, and there's a lot of interesting stories there. It's a really interesting documentary. I liked it.
Yeah, definitely not Sesame Street.
Yeah, definitely not Sesame Street. Not by a long shot.
And the name again?
It is called Not Quite Hollywood.
Okay.
It's from 2008, and I watched it on Tubi.
I'm sorry, let's go ahead.
I too watched this, but I watched it months ago.
Cool.
And it was very informative, very fun. But yeah, I was curious as to why they had to jam all that stuff in right at the first.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like they were trying to break it up into sections, like why they chose to do the sexploitation stuff right at the beginning like that is a little overwhelming at first. If they had done that second, I guess maybe that's where the whole thing started. I guess it's hard to tell, but yeah, it's a wake up call. You can read that however you want.
Okay, Les.
A couple things. I attended a comic book convention this past weekend.
Woo.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's nice to see some familiar faces and nice to be remembered. That was a 2-day session just this past weekend. And the other thing is I watched a video, a documentary called 24 by 36. And this is about the kind of the rise and fall and the rise again of movie posters and how they were first handled, then how they were an item that collectors dove at. And it was fun to see some of the original art, some of the, of course they had stories about this stuff too, which was great fun. I would recommend it, but it is almost 2 hours long. A movie about movie posters is about 2 hours long, which was, there were times I was checking my watch, but not in a bad sense like I've had to for some of the crap we've watched and talked about here. But I recommend it because they went as far as to talk about the new wave of creation of these items. And they bring in Mondo, they bring in Scuzzles, and they bring in Gray Matter, which are three manufacturers of the movie posters. So it's interesting and well worth the time to just take it all in. So try it out. I think you'll enjoy it.
Cool.
Yeah, I definitely want to. I'd like to check that out. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
I was gonna say that's neat. I mean, you'd think you almost have to be a kind of a collector to even stumble across a documentary like that, but that doesn't mean it isn't interesting and cool.
The thing about movie posters nowadays, it seems like the official ones that are coming from the studios are just most of them are just so dull and uninteresting and major use of Photoshop and all that. It's so crazy how you can see what's an official poster from, say, Disney or 20th Century Fox, whatever, and then you look at some of the ones that were created by fans or anything like that, and the fan made ones are 10 times more interesting. I miss how some of the posters, how the design of posters from 30, 40 years ago. I know I'm starting to sound an old man here, but but you know, I mean, in the ones you're talking about, Mondo, God, Mondo's posters are awesome. Those are really well done, and they're very creative. But it's just the stuff that actually comes from the official studios. There's just, am I the only one that's? I've heard other people talk about this. Have y'all noticed it too?
They even discuss that in this documentary.
Okay.
And they say that all the life has been drawn out of the industry because they do these certain shots for the movie posters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I don't
no,
mean to interrupt you.
it's fine. They murder them. And it's a shame because the early stuff was phenomenal to look at. It's some of the best rendering of the thought behind the movie itself. And, when we were younger, that's how they projected you. That's how they projected it for you to come see their movie.
Right.
And that's all gone now.
And there is an art to it. And it seems like the art has been taken out for more marketing or whatever you want terms you want to use. It's just it's an art, and it's like it's not being treated like that. It's just we got to get this. We got to make sure this actor has this much space and this, that, and the other. And it's like it's all cold and calculated. It needs to do what it needs to do, and that's it. And okay.
Yep.
So, cool. I definitely like to check that one out. Obviously.
I hadn't noticed. I don't know.
Well, for me, it's another week of not much accomplished. Actually, been doing a little bit more working on the schedule for next year's shows. Kind of looking things over again, trying to make sure. So just kind of settling the schedule and all that. I think next year's going to be a lot of fun. But not much other than that. Just kind of being a little bit laid back and just taking it easy, that kind of thing. So.
Saving up some energy for the holidays.
Something like that. Okay, before we get into this week's discussion, do want to point out, I don't think it was mentioned earlier, but we do have a Discord that y'all are more than welcome to come join us. We usually post a lot of news items, some fun stuff, questions for discussion, fun activities. We'll do like movie nights on there as well. Like I said, you're more than welcome to come join us. Discord is free to sign up. The app's free. We do have an invite on our homepage, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and come join us.
Yeah.
Okay. For this week, it's not anything horror related. Well, woo!
Cool.
After horror month, after horror month and then Bela Lugosi, we're kind of moving away from that for at least 1 week.
Yeah. Bela was a nice transition.
It was a nice transition.
The transition us away from horror movies and back into comics.
Mm-hmm. This year marks the 60th anniversary of the publishing of Fantastic Four #1. So Marvel's first superhero group, and actually first superhero comics.
I'm sorry. I think my neighbors opened a drag strip or something. Sorry.
Have fun, Mikey. Have fun.
Oh, if I can't figure out a way, man, it stays in. That's
all right.
The way it works.
There you go. 60 years of Marvel's first family. Obviously created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So with that, let's talk a little bit about Fantastic Four.
I'll have to admit, Fantastic Four is not my favorite. Apparently my neighbors either. I know the characters, and I guess they've been in separate things before. Like The Thing.
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah, so, I've watched a few of the movies, mainly because Julian McMahon was in them, which was Doctor Doom. Movie-wise, I will say this. I can step into a Marvel movie and enjoy them because I don't know a lot of the background or if this is canon or not, And with Fantastic Four, I was not able to do that. I think it had wonderful actors. It was very lacking on a script or a plot or the only good thing I can say about it is Chris Evans burns his clothes off. So
Pre-cap.
But yeah, it was pre-cap. But other than that, I can't. I've read stories with them in it, but not their stories. Didn't the Secret War, weren't they in that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of them, yeah.
Yeah.
3/4 of them were. Yeah.
Right. That was a little awkward, but yeah.
Yeah.
As I recall.
Mm.
But yeah, a product of its time. Yeah, and I think one of the issues with that, and I think your story makes sense to the extent that unfortunately the Fantastic Four hasn't been all that preeminent for the last, I don't know, would 20 years be crazy to say? I mean, they just haven't been a big deal at Marvel for a while. And so, I mean, the reasons why those movies in the 2000s were being made didn't have anything to do with, oh, hey, we need to make a Fantastic Four movie because Fantastic Four is awesome. It was generally, hey, we need to make a Fantastic Four movie because if we don't, our contract is going to elapse on it. So does it have to be good? Not really. We just have to, I mean, if we can recoup what we paid for it, that'd be great, but whatever other than that. So they've kind of gotten the short end of the stick for a while now. And I mean, I honestly think we're long overdue for kind of a resurgence here. I mean, I don't know how that would work or what needs to happen, but.
Well, didn't Marvel just recently get them back?
Yeah, when Disney acquired 20th Century Fox, they got the rights back, and they've already announced that they're going to do a Fantastic Four movie. So, with a Fantastic Four under Marvel Studios should be interesting. I think it would be. I think there's a lot of hope for this one. As a fan of Fantastic Four myself, the movies, the first two movies were kind of lackluster. The best thing of those was Michael Chiklis as Ben Grimm, the Thing. You could tell if you knew the source material, you could tell that he was a fan of the books, and he's mentioned that he was, because he definitely caught that spirit. I really wish they had done better with the suit, but that was probably a product of times. But he was great. I mean, and all the actors were okay. Like you said, it was really more issue with the script.
It was flat.
The thing that I don't understand, and I don't really want to spend a lot of time with the movies, but that's okay. The problem what they did with the first film, and then when they went to reboot it a few years ago, it seems like they always wanted to tie the origin of the Four with Doctor Doom. Why they always had to have their origins all tied together of how they got their abilities, plus the fact that they want to keep having Doctor Doom with superpowers, and I don't know how hard it is for them to make a movie and say, okay, the bad guy wears armor that has abilities. I mean, we had 3 freaking Iron Man movies. You know. Oh, plus the fact that this guy also knows sorcery. So, let's don't do the whole he gets this superpowers by some cosmic accident, which also gave the other 4 powers. It's like, don't do that.
It's lazy, is all it is.
Yeah.
It's very lazy. And plus the fact that, you did it once, okay, I can, it's not comics accurate, and we already talked about that, but I can overlook it. But when you do it again, it's just like, stop it.
Right. Okay.
Stop it.
You're trying to screw this up now, which is kind of where I was going with that. Was they're trying to not? They don't want to be too successful because they don't want they don't want to lose the rights that way. But they also have to put something out to keep the rights, and so it's a juggling act. And I mean, they went at it very deliberately, but yeah, that gets us away from the real story a little bit. But.
Well, see, for me, I didn't see it weird for Doctor Doom to have powers, mainly because I was a huge fan of Charmed, where Julian played Lucifer on there, so he, it's like a typecast,
Right, and that's a different motivation for you, too. But.
And if anything ever happened to Tom Ellis of Lucifer, Julian could, I think they're dead, they could be brothers. They're like dead ringers for each other. My opinion. My parents would freak if they heard me say, I have a thing for Lucifers.
That.
The whole part of the show that we talk about stuff like that before we actually are setting up the show, and you wait until the show to bring that up. I don't know what I can do with that, really.
I would contact her folks and make sure they heard this.
It's a thought. It is a thought.
Yep.
Wait till Christmas.
Especially at this time code.
Uh-huh. I can figure that out real easy when I'm putting it together.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the Fantastic Four.
Fantastic Four.
So comic-wise, has there been... I mean, I can't remember seeing a title for them lately, or... I kind of looked at it like when Marvel lost their rights to the movies, they kind of put it on the shelf.
They did at one point a few years back, but that was also around the same time that they were trying to do the same thing with the X-Men and trying to push the Inhumans, because Marvel didn't have the rights to be able to do the X-Men movies. They were still at 20th Century Fox. But Fantastic Four is up. Their current run's up to 40 now, so it's it's still good.
It's been back for a few years.
It's been back for a couple of years. Of course, just in time for the 60th anniversary. So
Well, and after Marvel got their rights back, I kind of saw, well, why are we going to write a really kick-ass comic book and give these guys source material for a movie? They sold it willingly, but it was kind of like,
Well, I don't know about willingly. They were bankrupt, so I mean they were trying to save their ass. So I don't know if that's really being
willingly is pushing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no guns at the signing,
So.
But I could understand that thinking, though. If we want to get them back, why are we going to give them something good and make it popular in the movies, and then it'd be harder for us to get it back? Because nowadays, most of the successful comic books are going to the writers and saying, hey, here's what we're doing. Would this character do this? If they're worth a shit, they do anyways. Snyder. But, some of them don't, and some of them just totally disregard the source material,
Well, and that takes us more into the editing aspects of comics, especially the big two, more than actual story generation. But
yeah.
Again, we're spending more time in the process than we are in the stories.
Right. So has it always remained the four? Has there ever, like Justice League, they've changed things up?
Oh yeah, the
sure.
rosters. Yeah, the rosters changed over the years. Yeah, but it always comes back to the four because they are a family.
Yeah.
I mean, Reed's married to Sue. Sue and Johnny are siblings, and then there's Ben, who he acts like a kid sometimes, especially with him fighting Johnny. I mean, they act like kids.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's literally a family.
Only slightly dysfunctional, but that's okay. That makes it fun.
Well, like a normal family.
Mm-hmm.
So sure.
Yeah.
Sure, if you say so.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm a fan of the characters in the books. You mentioned something kind of meaningful the last several years, and it's I can't think of a story other than something just finished up here a few months ago that I was just like, wow, that was just a great story. But they're obviously the Lee Kirby run. I mean, they weren't all winners, but it was a phenomenal run. John Byrne's run in the early to mid '80s was great. It harkened back to the old days to a degree. Walt Simonson's run definitely brought back kind of the sci-fi aspects of the group, and so so there's been some great runs over the years. Maybe not as well remembered now, the more recent stuff, but they've had some great stories. There's something about the characters that it always drew me to them. Maybe it's the family aspect. Maybe how one issue could be very superheroic, the next one could be the monster of the month, and then the one after that maybe more sci-fi intense. So it kind of varied to a degree, and that's kind of cool. That's something that you really can't get in some other books, say like a Spider-Man or something like that,
Right, and that gives them a really kind of diverse crew of villains to deal with too.
Yep.
Because you get stuff ranging from Doom, who is mostly just a tyrant, with, like you say, a few little. He dabbles in sorcery, but it mostly is just kind of got an entire nation behind him, and that's almost enough to make him a supervillain. But then you swing all the way to Galactus, who is just this huge cosmic creature who devours planets, basically.
Devours planets for energy. So yeah, I mean that's pretty bit wide pendulum.
It is, and all kinds of fun stuff in between.
Or spectrum, whatever.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's quite a crew.
I started reading this in the 60s, and it wasn't too far along, but I remember where they fought, I want to say the Pharaoh, and in that issue, you got a character, you got a villain who is a time traveler.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, since then, it's become an idea that this was Victor Von Doom, another version of Victor Von Doom, another version of Kang the Conqueror. all these people that are the same person in different times. I enjoyed this comic book until they got a little bit weird with it, which was, sorry to say, real quick. And not that it wasn't something I read religiously, because I did read it quite often. But when they had the wedding of Reed and Sue, and all of these villains showed up, I thought, this is getting a little strange. But they righted it and brought in more believable characters and did not have to rely on Von Doom all the time. Sometimes I wish that DC would take a look at that too, and not have the Joker be the villain every 2 months or something. They expanded to television. They expanded to movies. Their TV's episodes were quite amazing because they were so bad. They took the comic book, they had a voiceover, and the comic book was, if the four of them were walking through a jungle, you had a front showing the jungle line, and then the characters behind that, and then the jungle behind that. It was like watching 3 cutout versions. And when the characters, this is the first animated, when the characters walked, they just went up and down. Okay, that's them walking, and then they would move it left or right to make it look like they were walking this direction. It was horrendous. Luckily, they got past that too.
Mm-hmm. Especially when Hanna-Barbera got a hold of them. Those were amazing cartoons, yes.
Yeah, Hanna-Barbera did a great number with it. And kudos go to them, because they pulled a horrendous series out and made it a little more palatable.
It was fun. Yeah, that was a fun run. Yeah. I agree.
I thought the stories were fun, the comic book, and I'm going to say, Liz, you need to read some of these. They are in different forms, but they're pretty phenomenal as to what they accomplished. And with Kirby on the loose, he was amazing at taking something and making it a visual that you would go, I'd never thought of that. Mm-hmm. So when the movies came out, the latest movies, I saw the first 2, and that was it. Yeah. I didn't venture any further than that, but I don't think that I wasted, or I don't think I missed much of anything anyway. So I was pleased with what I did do. Like I said, I started reading it was back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And that's when the good times were.
the thing about reading the Lee Kirby stuff, because I've gone back and done that here within the last year or so, kind of gone to it. If you're reading it for the first time, you have to remember this is the 60s, because Sue was really not treated well. She was always, oh, okay, I'm just going to go invisible and I'm just going to hide over here while the guys are fighting, or she was kind of the damsel in distress, or just, well, you're a woman, you know. There's a lot of that in there, and it's kind of sad, because as the years and the stories progressed, writers realized what she could actually do with her powers, and she could be a threat if they actually handled her the right way. And it's kind of amazing when you kind of go back and read, you know, at different time periods, and all of a sudden she's not the damsel in distress, or she's not the weakest link. She's actually a very powerful person, both in terms of powers, and also in personality and all that, you know. So it's kind of amazing to see that. You talk about the wedding issue. The wedding issue, I thought the wedding issue was fun, because it's almost it's almost the entire Marvel universe in that one issue. All the heroes are here to celebrate the wedding of Reed and Sue, and all of a sudden here comes all the villains that they're wanting to sabotage the wedding and all that. And then at the very end, and it's such a cute thing that they actually incorporated into the second Fantastic Four movie, is that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby actually showed up to the wedding, but were not allowed in because the guys didn't know who they were. It's like, so no, you can't come in. And they did that in the movie. Obviously, Jack was not around to be a part of it, but that was Stan Lee's cameo in the second film, was him attending the wedding and was not allowed in. Do you remember that, Les?
Yes.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I think, probably the thing that made the Fantastic Four work was, one of Stan Lee's things from the beginning was he wasn't just trying to write superheroes, he was trying to write characters that people could relate to. And so, you called this the first superhero group for Marvel, and that's I think making them a family, like you said, was part of the deal, and it was something that really nobody else had done before. And so you've got, essentially kind of, the great thing about the family thing is you can pull both comedy and drama out of that.
Yeah.
And so you get some of both. You get the boys bickering, and then you get the whole relationship thing with Reed and Sue, and that's in addition to all of the fighting to save the world stuff.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of the beginning of that trend with Marvel, and in that regard, it was kind of groundbreaking.
Yeah. And this only came about due to the fact that DC had started up Justice League of America, and Martin Goodman says, hey, that's successful. We need to do something similar to that. And went to Stan Lee, says, make it happen. Which, according to some of the stuff I've read, Lee was about ready to leave the industry. And so he went ahead and did this, and it was so well received. He's like, okay, well, maybe I'll stay in and keep doing this. So, because DC had already brought back the superheroes back. Was it back 54 less? 54, 55?
For what, superheroes?
Yes.
Flash came in at 56,
Okay.
57.
So around that time. I mean, they still had Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, but the rest of the hero line had gone away.
Right.
So, but they started this up again, and then people started taking notice that these were popular. But Marvel was still doing the whole westerns, war magazines, horror, that kind of stuff. They didn't really jump into the heroes until 61. This is literally one of the first Marvel comics.
Right, they had been called, what the crap were they called before?
Atlas.
Atlas, right? I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was almost a total branding change for them.
Yeah.
Across the board.
So
this was the first time that Marvel had issued a comic without I'm not going to say a prequel, but a story that had not, or the characters that had not appeared before. And this was their own comic.
Yeah. Yep.
Right, premiere.
Yeah.
Yep. See, and all of this is why it blows me away that we basically can't have nice. I mean, until the last couple of years, like you said, we can't. There was just a long period where there just wasn't really Fantastic Four books, and I'm like, but this is completely mineable. I mean, you get like I said, you get the whole family thing going, and okay, you don't. The deal is you just have to understand you don't have to one up yourself every time. As long as you can get past that, which apparently I guess they couldn't for a while because they just stopped trying. There's just so many possible stories in there. There's so much weird stuff that you can do. There's so much normal stuff that you can do. There's so much funny stuff that you can do. And it just doesn't make sense to me that it just fell away. I mean, I guess it wasn't selling for a while, I guess. But, I mean, how much of that is the characters and how much of that is the effort being put forth?
Right.
Yep.
Just seems sad. But I guess the flip side of that is that you let it, I mean, as in farming, you let the field lay fallow for a while and then you come back strong as ever.
Yeah.
Set yourself up for a comeback.
I think part of the problem Marvel did was they introduced a lot of new characters, yet they just sat there. But when they would bring in a new character, we'll say Daredevil comes in. What does Daredevil do? He shows up on every damn cover that Marvel has. He is in part of the story that Marvel puts out that month. And you go, really? Are you trying to make us brain dead or something? Because everything was Daredevil. And granted, one of Daredevil's best stories was when he was with the Four, and the name of the story was A Blind Man Shall Lead Them, where he was the mainstay for the quad of heroes. And he had to be the one to come to their aid, come to their rescue, and get them righted again to defeat the enemy.
They needed a kick in the pants.
The strong kick. And this was before, I want to say this is before the gargoyle appeared. This was before the origin of Doom, because they did cover that when Reed and Ben went back to college to relive what they had experienced, and they told the story of Victor. And once again, Victor's face was never shown. And this is evident also when he became Doom. You never saw his face. And that's where, to me, the movies blew it, just like they did in the movie The Spirit. Octopus was never seen in the comics, but in the movie he had to make sure he was front and center. But there were some great stories, and hopefully they will reissue some of those, in like they've done recently with the Avengers and I think with Thor. I would like to see them reissue the first 15 or 20 issues in a combination, in a book, and say, here you go, start with this, and take it, read it as far as you can, and be sure, Thomas already said it, Simonson's run on there was amazing and should be one to pick up and read too.
Well, there's got to be Epic collections for these.
Yeah, there's Epic collections. Yeah,
so,
there's that.
There you go.
But they are coming out now with comic book size paperbacks.
Oh, just more like the basic trade.
Yeah, basic trade.
That's probably a little more cost effective.
Which be a lot cheaper.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, like you mentioned the Simonson run. That was great. That definitely brought in more of the sci-fi aspects, which, I mean, in Simonson that makes perfect sense. I'm a big fan of the Byrne run, which was around the 230s to 280s, something like that. Maybe not that long. But definitely recaptured the spirit of the original stuff. You could tell they were fans of the Lee Kirby material, because you could feel it when you read it. And I know
is that Byrne writing and drawing?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
He didn't for the first couple of issues. Then he took over writing because it was actually Bill Sienkiewicz. He was doing a little small run on FF, and then he left that to do Moon Knight. And it's something similar with Simonson. His first couple of issues there were actually just him writing, and then he took over doing the art as well. So I know there are collections that are, I think they're called Visionaries, but yeah, there's Burns. There's like 3 or 4 volumes of Burns stuff and 3 or 4 volumes of Simonson stuff. So if those should still be available, in addition to the Epic collections that you already. And I know that Marvel has been going back and doing new printings of some of the other stuff they had put out before, especially the early issues. And it's probably because, this is the 60th anniversary of Fantastic Four. Next year, Spider-Man, Hulk, and Thor, and then X-Men. So they're all hitting that pretty big anniversary. So a lot of that stuff's going to be reprinted so you can get it back out there for new readers or for readers who just want to get their hands on the early material. It makes sense, and I'm thankful for that, because some of that stuff I did not get when they were put out before, and it's hard to get your hands on them.
Mm.
Yep. So it's getting ready to be an exciting time.
Mm-hmm.
Really get your hands on some good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for $40, and you're getting around 20 issues or 20 plus issues of continuity. I mean, it may not be all 20 issues of Fantastic Four. It's in like it's in this case, there may be a couple issues where they appeared somewhere else, but still, it's still in continuity. And I mean, it's in color. That it's a great deal. You're talking about $2 a piece if you got it in individuals issues. So, I mean,
yep. You can't get comics for $2 much anymore.
No, you
can find them, but it's not very often.
You can find them in a dollar bin, but it's not. You can't find 20 issues in continuity that way. But so
yeah,
you might. Who knows? It'd be very rare.
As any comic collector will know. You come across that many issues in a row that you can buy, and yeah, that's a unicorn.
Yeah. So. Okay. Any final thoughts on Fantastic Four other than happy anniversary or happy birthday, however you want to say it?
Yeah. Go check some of that stuff out. It hasn't been super popular lately, but it might be getting ready to make a little resurgence here. Who knows?
Yeah, especially with a movie in the pipeline. We don't know exactly when, but it has been announced that there will be one. So, and with it being Marvel Studios, we got
fingers
hope.
Crossed.
It should be interesting, right?
Yep. All right. On that note, we are going to take a quick break and be right back. And we're back. Normally, this is our segment where we do our weekly picks, but with the shipping issues still going on and issues with the distributions and all that, we just don't have an accurate enough list to be able to do weekly picks. So we're taking a break for now. Maybe in the next week or two we'll start that up again. But if you go to our website or check out our previous episodes, we do have all our prior picks listed on show notes. So definitely check them out, and please go to your local comic shop and pick up all the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any special shout outs or mentions this week?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Nothing here.
Okay. This episode drops the 14th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so I'll say this. 4 years ago, on this date, November 14th, we had a new member join the podcast. Happy anniversary, Liz.
Yay. Thank you. I've had a lot of fun.
Who was it?
It was you.
Player to be named later.
Oh, yeah, I remember that deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
4 years ago, and the show's doubled in size, and a lot more babbling, a lot more editing.
A lot more editing, yeah. No kidding.
A lot more editing, yeah. And longer and more material to edit because it's longer episodes.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Especially when there's hour-long rants. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can't complain too much.
It's been a while since I did that.
The hour-long rant happened off mic, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Today, this week, we're good.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead with our regular shout-outs. First off, I want to thank Pop Goes the Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be a part of a great group of podcasts. Please check them out on the aforementioned show notes. Thank you, guys. We also want to thank the fine men and women who make up Podern Family, who've been so kind enough to spread the word of the fellowship on Twitter. Definitely check them out, and the best way to do that is do a search, hashtag Podern Family, one word, and just scroll through the list, and whatever catches your attention, please click on that link, download that episode, and hope you have a good time listening to them. Thank you guys for your support as always. Want to thank Maddie the Martyr for supplying the music to our podcast. In our show notes, we'll have a link to where you can check out their music. Thank you guys. And finally, dear listener, thank you. We appreciate your support as always, and we value your feedback. Any questions, comments, suggestions, complaints, observations, what have you, please send them our way, and there are several ways you can do that. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can go to the website and go to the About Us page, and there's a contact form that you can fill out. We have already mentioned the Discord. We do have a channel in our Discord that's specifically for feedback. Social media, we're on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. Obviously, we're on Twitter @Fellowship Geeks. If you like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, Mike can be found @MikeyGeek. Liz can be found @LN_geek. Les may or may not be found @FakeLesWebster. We'll let you figure that out. And I can be found @TomTCGeek. And from wherever you download our episodes, if you would be so kind as to rate and review our show, it would be greatly appreciated. Anything else before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you listening.
Thanks once again for listening, everybody. We do appreciate your support as always. Until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook @The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter @Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,